I never thought the day would come when I'd have to choose between protecting my grandson and exposing the truth about my own daughter. But that Tuesday morning, when I found those bank statements hidden in her desk drawer, everything I thought I knew about Jennifer crumbled like ash in my hands. My name is Dorothy Hayes. I'm 67 years old, and for the past 3 decades, I've worked as a financial advisor for high-net-worth clients. Not the kind of advisor you see in strip malls, but the kind who manages portfolios worth tens of millions, who sits in boardrooms deciding where old money should flow. I built my career on discretion, on reading people, on spotting patterns that others miss, and I never, not once, imagined I'd need to use those skills to investigate my own flesh and blood. Jennifer is my only child. I raised her alone after her father walked out when she was 2, leaving me with nothing but a rented apartment and a mountain of his gambling debts. I worked 2 jobs, put myself through night school, climbed from secretary to analyst to senior advisor. Every sacrifice I made was for her. Every penny I saved went toward her education, her comfort, her future. She graduated with honors, married a good man named David, and gave me the most precious gift imaginable, my grandson, Micah. Micah is 8 years old now. Bright eyes, curious mind, the kind of kid who asks questions that make you think. He's the reason I wake up smiling, the reason I kept working long past retirement age, building a nest egg not for myself but for him, for his college fund, for his future. I set up a trust in his name years ago, adding to it monthly, watching it grow into something substantial, something that would give him opportunities I never had, that Jennifer never fully appreciated. But Jennifer knew about that trust. She was listed as the custodial trustee until Micah turned 18. A formality, really. I never thought twice about it because she was my daughter, because I trusted her, because I believed the values I'd taught her had taken root. I was wrong. It started small, the kind of thing you notice but dismiss. 6 months ago, Jennifer asked to borrow $5,000. David's business hit a rough patch, she said, her voice tight with stress on the phone. Just until the next quarter. We'll pay you back with interest. I wired the money that afternoon. She was my daughter. She needed help. That's what mothers do. She never paid it back. When I asked about it 2 months later, she got defensive. Mom, things are still tight. You know how it is. We're not all financial geniuses like you. The edge in her voice should have warned me, but I let it go. Family doesn't keep score, I told myself. Family helps each other. Then came the second request. $10,000 this time. Micah needs braces. The orthodontist wants payment up front. I hesitated. Something felt off, but I couldn't name it. I sent the money anyway. A week later, I saw Jennifer's Instagram post. She and David at a luxury resort in Cabo, cocktails in hand, sunset in the background. Much needed getaway, the caption read, with a dozen heart emojis. No mention of braces, no mention of financial stress, just champagne and infinity pools. I called her. She had an explanation ready, smooth as butter. Mom, David's client gave us a free stay. We couldn't turn it down, and the braces got delayed. They'll happen next month. Her voice had that practiced casualness, the tone people use when they're lying, but want it to sound like truth. I'd heard it 1,000 times from clients trying to hide offshore accounts or undisclosed assets. But this was my daughter. I wanted to believe her. I chose to believe her. Last month, she asked for $20,000. Emergency home repairs. The foundation is cracking. I asked to see the contractor's estimate. She sent me a PDF that looked legitimate enough, detailed line items, professional letterhead. I transferred the money, but something nagged at me, a splinter in my mind I couldn't dislodge. So I drove past their house the following weekend, unannounced. No construction crew, no signs of foundation work, no equipment, no materials, nothing. The house looked exactly as it always had, pristine and undisturbed. Jennifer's new Mercedes sat in the driveway, gleaming silver, dealer plates still visible. A Mercedes she'd told me she was leasing at an incredible rate. That's when the splinter became a stake through my heart. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did what I do best. I investigated. I started watching patterns, tracking timelines, asking subtle questions. And 3 days ago, when Jennifer asked me to watch Micah while she and David attended a business conference, I said yes. But I wasn't just babysitting. I was looking for proof. Micah and I had a wonderful afternoon. We baked cookies, played board games, read stories. He's such a beautiful soul. innocent and trusting, unaware of the darkness growing in the adult world around him. While he napped on the couch, exhausted from laughter, I did something I never thought I'd do. I searched Jennifer's home office. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd find nothing, that my suspicions were just the cynicism of someone who'd spent too long uncovering financial fraud in strangers. But in the back of her desk drawer, hidden beneath old tax returns and expired insurance documents, I found a folder, a thin, innocuous folder that should have contained nothing important. Inside were bank statements, statements for accounts I didn't know existed, statements showing withdrawals from Micah's trust fund. My hands trembled as I read the numbers. $50,000, withdrawn over the past 8 months, in increments designed to avoid triggering automatic alerts. Withdrawn by Jennifer, using her authority as custodial trustee. Withdrawn for purposes listed as educational expenses and medical necessities. But Micah's school tuition was already paid. I'd confirmed that with the bursar's office months ago, part of my annual contribution. And the medical expenses were fiction. I had access to the insurance statements through my own account, since I'd kept Micah on my supplemental policy. There were no major medical claims, no braces, no emergency procedures, nothing. Jennifer had stolen from her own son, systematically, deliberately, and she'd lied to me, her mother, to cover it up. Every borrowed dollar, every fabricated emergency, every tearful phone call about David's struggling business had been theater. A performance designed to extract money from the woman who'd given her everything. I sat in that office, statements spread across the desk, and felt something break inside me. Not just trust, though that shattered completely. Something deeper. The belief that the child I'd raised, the daughter I'd sacrificed for, carried some essential goodness I'd instilled. That belief cracked like ice, and beneath it was cold, dark water. I photographed every page with my phone. Then, I carefully returned the folder to its hiding place, arranged everything exactly as I'd found it. Jennifer couldn't know I knew. Not yet, because I needed to understand the full scope of what she'd done, and I needed to plan my response carefully. This wasn't just about money. This was about Micah's future, about protecting an innocent child from a mother who viewed him as an asset to be liquidated. When Jennifer returned that evening, she was glowing, relaxed, happy, chattering about the conference and how productive it had been. She kissed Micah's forehead, thanked me for watching him, and told me I should go home and rest. "You look tired, Mom," she said with concern that now felt like mockery. "You work too hard." I smiled. I hugged her. I told her I loved her. And I left. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've barely slept. I've spent every waking hour reviewing those statements, cross-referencing withdrawals with Jennifer's sudden lifestyle improvements. The new car, the expensive vacations, the designer clothes that started appearing in her closet, all funded by money meant for Micah, money I'd carefully invested and grown for his future. And David. I'd thought he was innocent in all this, just a husband struggling with business difficulties. But his signature appeared on half the withdrawal authorizations. He knew. They both knew. They'd planned this together. 2 adults conspiring to rob a child, their own child, while lying to his grandmother. Yesterday, Jennifer called again. Her voice had that familiar tightness, the one that now made my stomach turn. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come over this Saturday, around 1 o'clock? I'm making lunch." "Of course," I said, keeping my voice warm and unsuspecting. "Is everything okay?" "Oh yes," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "Everything's fine. I just want to discuss some financial planning. You know, for Micah's future. Your expertise would really help." Financial planning for Micah's future. The audacity was breathtaking. "I'll be there," I promised. I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time. Saturday, 2 days away. She was going to ask for more money. I was certain of it. Or maybe she had a different plan. Something worse. Maybe she'd found a way to drain the trust completely, to take everything I'd built for Micah and disappear it into her own accounts. But I had something Jennifer didn't know about, something she'd forgotten in her greed and her certainty that her mother would never question her, never investigate, never see through the lies. I had documentation. I had proof. I had connections with attorneys who specialized in trust law and financial fraud. And I had a recording device I'd purchased that morning, small enough to fit in my purse, sophisticated enough to capture every word with crystal clarity. Saturday, I would walk into my daughter's house with a smile on my face and love in my heart. I would sit at her table, eat her food, listen to her lies, and I would record everything. Every word, every admission, every attempt to manipulate me into funding her lifestyle while she robbed my grandson blind. And then, when I had everything I needed, when there was no room for denial or explanation, I would do something I never imagined doing. I would destroy my own daughter's life to save my grandson's future. Because that's what love really is. Not blind acceptance, not unlimited forgiveness, but fierce, uncompromising protection of the innocent, even when the guilty wear a face you once cradled in your hands, even when the monster you must fight grew in your own womb. Saturday is coming. Jennifer has no idea what's waiting for her, but she's about to find out. Saturday morning arrived heavy with humidity and dread. I woke at 5, though I hadn't really slept. Just laid in the darkness, watching shadows shift across my ceiling, rehearsing conversations that might never happen, preparing for reactions I couldn't predict. By 6, I'd given up on rest entirely and made coffee, standing at my kitchen window, watching the neighborhood come alive with weekend routines. Dog walkers, joggers, a father teaching his daughter to ride a bike, one hand steady on her back, the other ready to catch her if she fell. Protection. That's what parents do. We catch our children when they fall. But what do you do when your child is the one pushing someone else off the ledge? I spent the morning preparing like a lawyer readying for trial. I reviewed every photographed bank statement again, organizing them chronologically on my laptop, creating a timeline of theft that was impossible to misinterpret. $53,000 to be exact, taken over 8 months in withdrawals ranging from $3,000 to $8,000 each. Always under $10,000 to avoid automatic reporting requirements. Jennifer knew the rules. I taught them to her myself, back when she was in college, and I was explaining how financial systems worked, how to protect assets, how to manage money responsibly. She'd learned the lessons. She'd just applied them to fraud instead of protection. I printed copies of everything and placed them in a leather portfolio, the kind I used for client presentations. Professional, organized, irrefutable. Then I checked the recording device I'd purchased. A digital voice recorder smaller than a deck of cards, with 8 hours of battery life and audio quality so clear you could hear a whisper from across a room. I'd tested it the night before, recording myself reading from a book, playing it back to ensure every word was captured with perfect clarity. It worked flawlessly. I slipped it into my purse, nestled between my wallet and keys where it would be invisible but active. At 12:30, I dressed in what Jennifer would expect. Casual slacks, a comfortable blouse, minimal jewelry. The grandmother coming for lunch, nothing more. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. My face looked older than 67, carved with new lines of stress and betrayal. My eyes, which people always said were kind and warm, looked hollow, haunted. I forced a smile. It felt like a mask. The drive to Jennifer's house took 20 minutes through suburban streets, lined with perfect lawns and 2-car garages, upper middle-class comfort bought with careers and mortgages, and, in my daughter's case, stolen money. Her neighborhood was the kind of place where people waved at each other, where children played in cul-de-sacs, where everyone believed their neighbors were good people, living good lives. Lies, I thought, all of it built on lies. Jennifer's house stood at the end of a curved street, a 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters. Picture perfect. The Mercedes sat in the driveway next to David's Audi, both cars less than a year old. Both purchased, I now realized, with money that should have been growing in accounts for Micah's education. I parked on the street and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, forcing myself to breathe slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way I'd taught myself during panic attacks after Jennifer's father left, when I was drowning in debt and fear and didn't know if I could survive. I'd survived then. I would survive this. I reached into my purse and activated the recording device with a single press. A tiny green light blinked once, then went dark. Recording. I grabbed the leather portfolio, locked my car, and walked up the driveway with my practiced smile firmly in place. Jennifer opened the door before I could knock, as if she'd been watching for me. She wore a yellow sundress that probably cost $500, her hair professionally styled, makeup flawless. She looked radiant, happy, successful. every inch the devoted mother and daughter. "Mom!" She pulled me into a hug that felt warm and genuine. For a moment, I almost broke, almost dropped the portfolio and the recording device and the entire plan, because this was my daughter. The baby I'd rocked through nightmares, the toddler whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, the teenager I'd stayed up with during heartbreaks and college applications. But then she pulled back, and I saw it. Just for a fraction of a second, something flickered in her eyes. Calculation, assessment, the look of someone measuring their mark. The moment passed so quickly I might have imagined it, but I hadn't. I'd seen that look before, in the eyes of clients who were about to lie to me about hidden assets or falsified documents, the look of someone about to manipulate. "Come in," Jennifer said brightly. "Lunch is almost ready. Micah's been asking about you all morning." As if on cue, Micah came running from the living room, his face lighting up when he saw me. "Grandma!" He crashed into my legs, hugging me with the unself-conscious enthusiasm of childhood. I set down the portfolio and scooped him up, holding him tight, breathing in the scent of his shampoo and innocence. This was what I was protecting. Not money, not even justice. This beautiful, trusting child who deserved better than parents who would steal from him. "Hey, sweet boy," I whispered into his hair. "I missed you. I made you a drawing," he said, wiggling down and grabbing my hand. "Come see." He dragged me to the kitchen table, which was set for 4, with nice dishes and cloth napkins. A drawing sat at what was clearly my designated seat, a crayon picture of a woman with gray hair holding hands with a small boy. "You and me at the park," Micah explained proudly. My throat tightened. "It's perfect," I managed. "Absolutely perfect." David emerged from the home office, his smile polished and corporate. He'd always been handsome in that generic way successful men often are. Good haircut, expensive watch, firm handshake. "Dorothy, great to see you." He kissed my cheek. "Jennifer's made her famous chicken salad. You're in for a treat." Famous, as if stealing from your son was balanced by making good chicken salad. We sat down to lunch, and for 30 minutes it was almost pleasant. Jennifer served food and poured iced tea. Micah chattered about school and his best friend's birthday party. David talked about a new client he'd landed. They performed normalcy with practiced ease, a family tableau that would have been convincing if I didn't know what I knew. If you're watching this and you've ever had to smile while your heart was breaking, while you sat across from someone you loved who'd betrayed you completely, you know what I felt. That strange split between what your face shows and what your soul screams. Finally, Jennifer cleared the plates and sent Micah upstairs to play. 30 minutes of video games, she told him. Then homework. Micah bounded away happily. The second his footsteps faded, the atmosphere changed. Jennifer and David exchanged a look, some silent communication passing between them. Jennifer sat back down, her hands folded on the table, her expression shifting into something more serious. "Mom, thanks for coming," she began. "David and I wanted to talk to you about something important." Here it comes, I thought. I kept my face pleasant and attentive, my hands relaxed in my lap, inches from my purse and the recording device capturing every word. "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" Jennifer took a breath, as if what she was about to say was difficult, as if she were about to make herself vulnerable instead of attempting to rob me blind again. "We've been thinking a lot about Micah's future," she said, "about his education, his opportunities, everything he's going to need as he grows up. And we're so grateful for the trust you set up for him. Truly, it's an incredible gift." She paused, and David picked up the thread seamlessly, clearly rehearsed. "The thing is, Dorothy, we've been doing some research about private schools in the area, really top-tier institutions that could give Micah advantages that public school just can't match. Connections, resources, smaller class sizes, better college placement. There's one in particular," Jennifer continued, leaning forward with manufactured enthusiasm. "The Oakmont Academy. It's extraordinary, but the tuition is significant. $60,000 a year, plus fees and expenses. $60,000. I kept my expression neutral, interested, but not committed. "That is substantial." "It is," Jennifer agreed, "but we think it's worth it for Micah. The problem is, David's business, while growing, isn't quite at the level where we can cover that expense comfortably, not without significantly impacting our quality of life, not Micah's education, theirs." And we can't access the trust funds directly, David added. Not without your approval as the grantor. So we wanted to ask if you'd consider releasing a larger disbursement to cover the first few years of tuition. Maybe $200,000? That would give us breathing room and ensure Micah gets into Oakmont for the fall semester. $200,000, on top of the $53,000 they'd already stolen. I let the silence stretch, pretending to consider it. Jennifer's leg bounced under the table, a nervous tic she'd had since childhood. David's smile remained fixed, but his jaw was tight. That's a lot of money, I said slowly. Have you already applied to this school? Has Micah been accepted? Another glance between them. We wanted to talk to you first, Jennifer said, before we started the application process, because it doesn't make sense to apply if the funding isn't available. Logical, reasonable, completely fabricated. Can I see information about the school? I asked. Their curriculum, their track record, anything that would help me understand why it's worth such a significant investment? Of course, Jennifer said quickly, standing up. I have a brochure in the office. Let me grab it. She disappeared down the hall. David and I sat in awkward silence. He checked his phone, scrolling through something, avoiding eye contact. The man couldn't even maintain the pretense once Jennifer left the room. She returned with a glossy brochure for Oakmont Academy. I flipped through it slowly, examining photographs of smiling students in uniforms, impressive facilities, pages of text about their educational philosophy. It looked legitimate, probably was legitimate. Whether Micah would ever actually attend was another question entirely. This looks impressive, I said, closing the brochure. But $200,000 is a substantial amount to release all at once. What if I wanted to see how Micah does in his first year before committing to multiple years of tuition? Jennifer's smile tightened fractionally. Mom, the thing is, they require a commitment. If we want him to start in the fall, we need to show we can cover at least 3 years. Otherwise, they won't accept him. These schools want financial stability. A lie. I knew it was a lie because I'd worked with dozens of clients whose children attended elite private schools. They all accepted yearly tuition payments. They all understood that circumstances could change. None required 3-year deposits up front. But I didn't challenge it. Not yet. I need to think about it, I said, my voice gentle and apologetic. It's a big decision. Maybe I should consult with my attorney. Make sure releasing that much from the trust doesn't create any tax implications or legal issues. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Your attorney? David's tone was carefully controlled, but I heard the edge beneath it. Dorothy, this is family. This is for Micah. Why would you need legal advice about helping your grandson? Because the trust has specific structures and requirements, I replied calmly. I set it up that way deliberately to protect the funds until Micah is old enough to manage them himself. Releasing large amounts early might trigger consequences I haven't considered. I just want to be careful. Jennifer's mask slipped for half a second. I saw anger flash across her face, quickly suppressed. Mom, you know how these schools work. Spots fill up fast. If we wait too long, we'll miss the enrollment window. This is Micah's future we're talking about. I understand that, sweetheart. And I want what's best for him. Always. But rushing into a $250,000 decision without proper consideration wouldn't be responsible, would it? The logic was unassailable. They couldn't argue against prudence without revealing their desperation. David stood abruptly. I need to make a phone call. Excuse me. He left the room with barely controlled frustration. Jennifer watched him go, then turned back to me. Her expression shifted again, this time to something softer, vulnerable. The devoted daughter appealing to her mother's love. Mom, she said quietly, reaching across the table to take my hand. I know I haven't always been the best with money. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm trying to do right by Micah. I'm trying to give him opportunities I didn't have. Don't you trust me? And there it was. The manipulation technique as old as time. Appeal to trust. Make the other person feel guilty for being cautious. Frame reasonable questions as betrayal. I looked into my daughter's eyes, those eyes I used to read bedtime stories to, and I saw a stranger. Someone I'd created, but never really known. Someone capable of lying to her own mother while robbing her own son. Of course I trust you, I lied smoothly. I just need a little time to sort out the logistics. Give me a week. I'll talk to my attorney, review the trust documents, and we can make a plan that works for everyone, okay? Jennifer withdrew her hand. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. A week. Okay. But Mom, Please understand how important this is. Please don't let legal technicalities stand in the way of Micah's education. I would never do that, I promised. His education is my priority. Always has been. That much was true. His education was my priority. But so was ensuring he had funds left to actually pay for college, instead of watching his parents drain every penny for luxury cars and vacations. I stayed for another hour, playing with Micah, pretending everything was fine. When I finally said goodbye, Jennifer hugged me tightly. "Thank you for considering it, Mom. I love you. I love you too, baby," I whispered, and meant it. Even now, even knowing what she'd done. Love doesn't disappear just because someone betrays you. It just becomes a wound that won't stop bleeding. I drove home in silence, the recording device still active in my purse, now containing 90 minutes of Jennifer and David asking me to fund their lifestyle with another massive withdrawal from Micah's trust. 90 minutes of lies wrapped in concern for a child they were systematically robbing. When I got home, I transferred the audio file to my laptop and listened to the entire conversation again, taking notes, marking timestamps of the most damning statements. Then I called my attorney, Marcus Chen, someone I'd worked with for 15 years on countless estate planning matters. "Marcus, I need to see you Monday morning, first thing. And I need to discuss initiating legal action to remove a trustee for cause." There was a pause on the other end. "Dorothy, are you talking about Jennifer?" "Yes. What happened?" "She's been embezzling from Micah's trust. I have documentation, I have recordings, and I need to stop her before there's nothing left to protect." Another pause, longer this time. "Come in at 8. Bring everything you have. We'll figure this out." I hung up and sat at my kitchen table as daylight faded outside my windows. Somewhere across town, Jennifer and David were probably celebrating, thinking they'd successfully manipulated me into releasing another $200,000, thinking their scheme was working perfectly. They had no idea that on Monday morning, I would walk into an attorney's office and begin the legal process of stripping Jennifer of her access to Micah's trust, that I would file a police report for embezzlement, that I would burn down her perfect life to save our grandson. They had no idea that I'd spent 30 years becoming an expert at spotting financial fraud. And now I was turning that expertise against my own daughter. If you've stayed with me this far, you know this isn't a story about money. It's about the moment you discover the person you love most is capable of betraying the person you both should protect. It's about choosing between loyalty and justice, between being a mother and being a guardian. And I'd made my choice. Monday was 2 days away. Jennifer thought she had a week to work on me, to soften my resolve, to manipulate me into compliance. But in 2 days, her world was going to collapse, and I was the one who would pull the trigger, because sometimes love means saving someone from the people who should protect them, even when one of those people is your own child. Monday morning broke cold and gray, the kind of November day that feels like the world is holding its breath. I barely slept Sunday night, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios and best-case outcomes, none of them satisfying. By 6 a.m., I was dressed in my most professional suit, charcoal gray, tailored, the armor I wore to boardroom meetings where millions were at stake. Today, my grandson's future was at stake. That was worth more than any corporate deal I'd ever brokered. Marcus Chen's office occupied the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and expensive views. I'd been there dozens of times over the years, but never for something like this. Never to discuss prosecuting my own daughter. His assistant showed me into the conference room at exactly 8 o'clock. Marcus was already there, a pot of coffee and 2 mugs waiting on the table. He stood when I entered, his expression grave. "Dorothy," he said simply, gesturing to a chair. I sat down and pulled out the leather portfolio, now thick with printed bank statements, withdrawal records, and a transcript I'd made of Saturday's recorded conversation. I spread them across the conference table like evidence at a crime scene, because that's what this was, a crime scene. Marcus spent 45 minutes reviewing everything in silence, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad, his face growing darker with each page. Finally, he set down the last document and looked at me. "This is clear-cut embezzlement," he said quietly. "Breach of fiduciary duty, theft, fraud. Jennifer had legal authority to make withdrawals for Micah's benefit, but she used that authority to enrich herself. The documentation is damning." "I know. Dorothy, if we pursue this legally, There will be consequences, criminal consequences. Jennifer could face prison time. The word hit me like a physical blow. Prison. My daughter in prison. But I forced myself to stay focused, to think about Micah, not about the woman who'd once been my whole world. What are my options? I asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Option 1. We file a civil action to remove her as trustee and recover the stolen funds. We can also petition the court for an accounting of all trust assets. This route avoids criminal charges, but makes everything public. There will be a court case. Jennifer will need to defend herself. The family will be exposed. And option 2? We go to the district attorney with evidence of embezzlement. They investigate, and if they agree there's a case, which they will, based on what you've shown me, they file criminal charges. Jennifer gets arrested. There's a trial or a plea deal. She potentially faces years in prison and mandatory restitution. Option 3? I asked, though I already knew what he'd say. You do nothing. You remove her as trustee quietly through a private trust modification, which you have the authority to do as grantor. You write off the stolen money as a loss. You never speak to Jennifer about it directly. You protect Micah's remaining assets and walk away. I stared at the documents spread across the table. $53,000 stolen. Another $200,000 they'd tried to steal on Saturday. And this was just what I'd found. There could be more, accounts I didn't know about, other schemes I hadn't uncovered yet. If I do nothing, I said slowly, what's to stop her from finding another way to get to Micah's money? What's to stop her from manipulating him directly when he's older, convincing him to give her access to his trust when he turns 18? Marcus nodded. Nothing. In fact, that's likely. People who commit financial fraud against family members rarely stop unless forced to. And Jennifer has shown sophisticated planning here. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated theft over months. Then option 3 isn't really an option, I said. I can't protect Micah by doing nothing. No, you can't. I picked up one of the bank statements, studying the withdrawal dated 6 months ago. $5,000, listed as educational materials. The date was 1 week before Jennifer posted photos from Cabo on Instagram. What would you recommend? I asked Marcus. If Micah were your grandson, what would you do? He was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. I'd start with the civil action. Remove her as trustee, recover the funds if possible, establish a protective order preventing her from accessing the trust. That sends a clear message and protects Micah without destroying Jennifer's life completely. And if she fights it, if she lies in court the way she lied to me, then we present this evidence. We play the recording from Saturday. We show the pattern of false loan requests and fabricated emergencies. We destroy her credibility so thoroughly that the judge has no choice but to rule in Micah's favor. I closed my eyes. Jennifer, cross-examined on a witness stand. Jennifer, exposed as a thief in public court record. Jennifer, humiliated and ruined. But also Jennifer, unable to hurt Micah anymore. Jennifer, forced to face consequences. Jennifer, maybe, possibly, learning that actions have costs. Start with the civil action, I said, opening my eyes. File the motion to remove her as trustee and petition for an accounting. If she contests it, we go to war. If she fights, we bring out everything, including the recording. Marcus nodded, making notes. I'll draft the petition today. We can file by end of week. Dorothy, you should know that the moment we file, Jennifer will be served with papers. She'll know you're coming after her. She'll know you've been investigating. Things between you will never be the same. They're already not the same, I said softly. They haven't been since I found those bank statements. She just doesn't know it yet. There's one more thing you need to consider, Marcus said. Micah. He's 8 years old. At some point, he's going to learn that his grandmother sued his mother, that his mother stole from him. How do you plan to handle that? I hadn't thought that far ahead. I'd been so focused on stopping Jennifer, on protecting the money, that I hadn't fully processed the emotional fallout for Micah. How do you explain to a child that his mother is a thief, that his grandmother had to take legal action to save his future? I don't know, I admitted. But I'd rather have him confused and upset now than broke and betrayed at 18 when he finds out there's nothing left. Marcus stood up and extended his hand. I'll call you when the petition is ready to review. This is going to be difficult, Dorothy. Probably the hardest thing you've ever done. But you're doing the right thing. I shook his hand and gathered my documents. Doing the right thing shouldn't feel this much like destroying your own heart. No, he agreed. but it often does. I left the office and drove aimlessly for an hour, not ready to go home, not ready to face the silence and the waiting. I found myself at the park where I used to take Micah when he was younger, where we'd spent countless afternoons pushing him on swings and building sandcastles and chasing pigeons. I sat on the same bench where I'd watched him play, where I'd felt such simple, uncomplicated joy at being his grandmother. A young mother pushed her toddler on the swings nearby, her laughter mixing with the child's delighted squeals. Pure, innocent, the way things were supposed to be. My phone rang. Jennifer's name lit up the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Hi, honey." "Mom." Her voice was bright, cheerful, utterly oblivious. "I was just thinking about our conversation on Saturday. Have you had a chance to talk to your attorney yet?" She couldn't even wait the week she'd agreed to. The desperation was showing through. "Not yet," I lied. "I have an appointment scheduled for later this week." A pause. "Oh, I was hoping maybe you'd already spoken with him." "The enrollment deadline for Oakmont is coming up faster than we thought. The admissions director called this morning and said they need a financial commitment by Friday or they'll give Micah's spot to another family." Another lie. Another fabrication designed to pressure me into releasing funds. "Jennifer, even if I wanted to release the money immediately, trust modifications take time. There are legal procedures, documentation requirements. You can't rush these things." "I know, Mom, but this is Micah's education. Can't we find a way to expedite it? What if you just wrote a personal check to the school as a deposit, and then we'd sort out the trust paperwork later? I'd pay you back as soon as the funds transfer." The audacity was breathtaking. She was asking me to front $200,000 from my personal accounts, money I'd earned through decades of work, with a vague promise to pay me back that we both knew would never materialize. "I'm not comfortable doing that," I said carefully. "If we're going to access trust funds for Micah's education, we need to do it properly, with documentation and legal oversight." The silence on the other end was heavy. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice had changed, harder, colder. "Mom, I'm starting to feel like you don't trust me, like you think I'm trying to do something wrong. That hurts." The manipulation was so textbook, it almost made me laugh. Flip the script, make the victim feel guilty, play the wounded party. "It's not about trust, sweetheart. It's about being responsible with money that's meant for Micah's future. You understand that, don't you?" "I understand that my own mother apparently needs lawyers and documentation to help her grandson. I understand that you'd rather hide behind legal procedures than support your family when we need you." The words stung, even though I knew they were designed to. Even though I knew Jennifer was cornered and lashing out. Even though I knew this was manipulation, not genuine hurt. "Jennifer, I've always supported you and Micah. I always will. But I won't be pressured into financial decisions without proper consideration. That's not how I work, and you know that." "Fine." Her voice was ice. "Take your time, talk to your lawyers, do whatever you need to do. But when Micah loses his spot at one of the best schools in the state because his grandmother couldn't act quickly enough, you can explain that to him." She hung up before I could respond. I sat on the bench, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to dead air. That was the first time Jennifer had ever been openly hostile to me. The first time she'd dropped the pretense of the loving daughter and let me see the anger underneath. It was also confirmation that I was making the right choice, because that anger didn't come from concern about Micah's education. It came from a con artist realizing her mark was slipping away. The next 3 days crawled by with agonizing slowness. Marcus sent me the draft petition Wednesday afternoon, and I spent hours reviewing it, making sure every detail was accurate. The language was stark and uncompromising. Petition for removal of trustee and accounting of trust assets based on breach of fiduciary duty and embezzlement. Legal words for, "Your daughter stole from your grandson, and you're stopping her." Jennifer called twice more during those 3 days. I let both calls go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to speak to her again. Not until the petition was filed and she was officially served. After that, anything she said to me could potentially be used in court, and Marcus had advised me to minimize direct contact. On Thursday evening, Micah called from Jennifer's phone. His little voice was confused and hurt. "Grandma, why haven't you come to visit? Mom says you're busy with work, but I miss you." My heart cracked. "I miss you too, sweet boy. So much. Can you come over this weekend? We could go to the park like we always do." I wanted to say yes. Every cell in my body screamed to say yes, to see him, to hold him, to pretend everything was normal for just a few more days. But Jennifer was in the background. I could hear her, and I knew this call was strategy. She was using Micah as leverage, reminding me what I stood to lose if I continued down this path. I'll see what I can do, honey. I'll try very hard to visit soon. I love you. Love you too, Grandma. Jennifer took the phone back. He misses you, Mom. We all do. Have you made a decision about the school funding? I'll let you know when I have, I said, and hung up before she could say more. Friday morning, Marcus called. Petition is filed. Jennifer will be served with papers this afternoon. Are you prepared for her reaction? No, I said honestly. But it doesn't matter. Do it. At 4:30 that afternoon, my phone exploded with calls. Jennifer, over and over. Then David. Then text messages, dozens of them, scrolling across my screen faster than I could read them. Mom, what is this? Why are you doing this? You're suing me? How could you? After everything I've done, you're trying to destroy our family. Over money. I can't believe this. You're going to regret this. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence of my living room as darkness fell outside. It was done. The bomb had been dropped. There was no taking it back now. If you've made it this far in my story, you know this isn't about revenge. This isn't about punishment. This is about protection. About standing between a predator and her prey, even when the predator is your own child and the prey is your grandson. Saturday morning, someone knocked on my door at 7 a.m. I looked through the peephole and saw Jennifer standing on my porch, mascara streaked down her face, still wearing what looked like yesterday's clothes. I opened the door. She stared at me with red-rimmed eyes full of hurt and fury and something else. Fear. How could you? She whispered. Come in, I said quietly. She followed me to the living room and stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her body together. Mom, I don't understand. You're suing me. You're accusing me of stealing from Micah. You recorded our private conversation and gave it to lawyers. How could you do this to me? I sat down and gestured for her to sit. She didn't. Jennifer, I found the bank statements. I know about all the withdrawals. The $53,000 you took from Micah's trust over the past 8 months. Her face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I photographed every statement. I have records of every withdrawal, every false designation of educational expenses and medical necessities. I know about the Mercedes and the vacations and the designer clothes all purchased with money meant for your son. Those withdrawals were legitimate, she said, but her voice wavered. I used that money for Micah. Did you? Then show me the receipts. Show me the tuition payments and the medical bills and the educational materials. Show me any evidence that money went to Micah instead of into your bank account. She couldn't. We both knew she couldn't. I'm his mother, she said instead. I have the right to make financial decisions for him. You have the right to make decisions that benefit him, not decisions that rob him to fund your lifestyle. Jennifer's composure cracked. You don't understand. David's business has been struggling. We've had expenses you don't know about. We needed help, and you have so much money, Mom. So much. You could have just given us what we needed without all these legal complications. I did give you money, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I gave you $5,000 when you said David's business was failing. $10,000 for braces Micah never got. $20,000 for foundation repairs that never happened. I gave you every dollar you asked for, and it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough, was it? She was crying now, full sobs that shook her shoulders. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It started small. Just one withdrawal to cover bills, then another. Then it got easier. I told myself I'd pay it back. I told myself it was temporary. But you didn't pay it back. You took more. And when I discovered what you'd done, instead of confessing, instead of apologizing, you tried to steal $200,000 more by lying about a school enrollment. I panicked, she screamed. I panicked, okay? When you said you wanted to talk to lawyers, I knew you were suspicious. I thought if I could just get one more big withdrawal, I could cover my tracks, pay back what I'd taken, and you'd never know. But I do know. And now you're facing legal consequences. Jennifer fell to her knees on my carpet, literally begging, Mom, please, please don't do this. Drop the lawsuit. I'll pay back every penny. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. Just please don't destroy me. Think about Micah. Think about what this will do to him. And there it was, the final manipulation. using Micah as a shield. I am thinking about Micah, I said, my voice deadly quiet. I'm thinking about protecting his future from a mother who views him as an ATM. I'm thinking about making sure he has money for college instead of watching you drain every account to pay for cars and vacations. I'm thinking about teaching him that actions have consequences, that stealing is wrong even when family does it, that love means protecting people, not exploiting them. I'm his mother, Jennifer sobbed. You can't take him from me. I'm not taking him from you, but I am taking away your ability to hurt him financially. The court will decide whether you remain in his life in other ways. She looked up at me with devastation and hatred mixed in her eyes. If you do this, if you actually go through with this, I will never forgive you. Never. You'll lose me. You'll lose access to Micah. David and I will make sure you never see him again. The threat hung in the air like poison, and I realized, sitting there watching my daughter threaten to weaponize my grandson against me, that I'd already lost her. Maybe I'd lost her years ago. Maybe I'd never really had her at all, just an illusion of a daughter that I'd built to cover the reality. If that's your choice, I said softly, then that's your choice. But Jennifer, I'd rather lose contact with Micah now, knowing I protected his future, than watch from the sidelines while you destroy it and have him hate me later for doing nothing. She stood up, her face twisting with rage. You self-righteous bitch, you think you're so perfect, so moral. You're just a bitter old woman who can't stand that I have a life and a family while you sit alone in this pathetic apartment. The words were designed to wound, and they did, but they also revealed the truth beneath everything. Jennifer didn't just see Micah's trust as money she was entitled to. She saw me, her mother, as someone beneath her, someone whose sacrifices meant nothing, someone to be used and discarded. Get out, I said quietly, gladly. She stormed to the door, then turned back. You're going to regret this. When you're old and sick and alone, when Micah is grown and doesn't remember your name, you're going to regret choosing money over family. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat in the silence for a long time, tears finally falling, grieving not for what I'd lost, but for what had never really existed. The daughter I thought I'd raised, the family I thought we were. The court case took 3 months. Jennifer hired an attorney and contested everything, claiming the withdrawals were legitimate, that I was senile and vindictive, that she'd only ever acted in Micah's best interest. Her attorney was aggressive, painting me as a controlling matriarch trying to manipulate my daughter through money. But Marcus was better. He presented the bank statements, the fabricated invoices, the Instagram posts, showing luxury vacations during the same weeks Jennifer claimed financial hardship. And finally, he played the recording from that Saturday lunch, where Jennifer and David explicitly admitted the school story was about getting access to more funds, not about Micah's education. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for lies, listened to everything. Then she ruled. Jennifer was removed as trustee, effective immediately. She was ordered to repay the $53,000 plus interest. The court appointed a professional trustee to manage Micah's accounts until he turned 25, and the judge issued a protective order preventing Jennifer or David from accessing, requesting, or even inquiring about trust assets. Jennifer sat in the courtroom while the ruling was read, her face carved from stone. She didn't look at me once. The judge also noted that while the evidence suggested criminal embezzlement, she was not referring the case to the district attorney at this time, given the family's circumstances and Jennifer's agreement to full restitution. But she warned Jennifer that any future attempts to access Micah's funds would result in immediate criminal prosecution. It was over. I'd won. But winning felt like drowning. 6 months have passed since the court ruling. Jennifer and David filed for divorce 3 weeks after the judgment. Apparently, the stress of the lawsuit and the financial exposure revealed other cracks in their marriage. David moved to another state for work. Jennifer got primary custody of Micah, and I haven't seen my grandson in half a year. Jennifer made good on her threat. She blocked my number, returned my letters unopened, and instructed Micah's school not to release him to me under any circumstances. Legally, I have no grandparent visitation rights in this state unless I can prove she's an unfit mother, which the court has not determined she is. So I wait. And I add money to Micah's trust every month, watching it grow back to what it should have been. I wait and I write letters I know he'll never receive, telling him about my life, about how much I love him, about why I did what I did. I seal them and date them and store them in a box, hoping someday he'll be old enough to want to read them. I wait, and I live with my choice. Some nights, I lie awake wondering if I made a mistake, if I should have just let Jennifer take the money, if maintaining a relationship with Micah would have been worth the financial loss. But then I remember that lunch, Jennifer's casual manipulation, her practiced lies. I remember the bank statements showing systematic theft, and I know that if I'd done nothing, if I'd enabled her behavior, Micah would have grown up watching his mother steal from him and his grandmother pretend not to notice. What lesson would that have taught him? That family means tolerating abuse? That love means being complicit in someone's worst impulses? No, I did the right thing. It destroyed my relationship with my daughter. It cost me access to my grandson. It left me more alone than I've been since Jennifer's father walked out 40 years ago. But it was still right, because sometimes love isn't about keeping the peace. Sometimes love is about standing up, even when standing up means standing alone. Sometimes protecting someone means accepting that they'll hate you for it, at least for a while. Micah is 9 now. In 9 more years, he'll be 18 and legally able to access information about his trust, about what his mother did, about why his grandmother disappeared from his life. He'll be able to read my letters. He'll be able to make his own choices about our relationship. And maybe, just maybe, he'll understand. Or maybe he won't. Maybe Jennifer has poisoned him against me so thoroughly that he'll never want to know my side. Maybe I'll die alone, estranged from the only family I have, with nothing but a trust fund with his name on it to show for all my love. But at least he'll have that trust fund. At least he'll have options, opportunities, a future his mother didn't steal. At least I'll know I tried. And in the end, trying is all any of us can do. If you're watching this and you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and doing what's right, I hope you chose right. I hope you had the courage to stand up, even when it cost you everything. Because some things are worth the cost. Some battles have to be fought, even when you can't win. And some children have to be protected, even from the people who gave them life. I'm Dorothy Hayes. I'm 67 years old. I'm a financial advisor, a mother, and a grandmother who hasn't seen her grandson in 6 months. But I'm also the woman who saved his future. And that will have to be enough.